Across the country, people are taking today to honor the military veterans of the United States Armed Forces. This Veterans Day, we're sharing one local hero story.
Our ABC 17's Tom Seagrave spoke with a son of Ronald Grove about his father's service. That service included a crash landing and an escape from a Swiss internment camp during World War II.
I work behind the scenes here at ABC 17 News, and I'm very comfortable inside this control room. But when I was given the opportunity to talk about one of our local veterans, I knew it was time for me to step out of this room so I could tell you his story. This is Ronald Grove, who I first met in 2010. He lived in Centralia for many years, he worked there, and he raised a family there. Unfortunately, he passed away in March of 2014. But before he died, I got to learn about his military service during World War II. I also got to spend some time with his son Gerald recently.
Knowing that Dad was willing to take those risks and played that part in a war that needed to be won by the Allies, that's my dad.
Ronald Grove enlisted in the military in 1942 at the age of 19. After several long months of training, Ronald found himself attached to a 10-man crew on a Boeing B-17 bomber as a tail gunner. He was part of the 95th Bomb Group, which was based in Horham in the United Kingdom. Known as the Flying Fortress, the B-17 bomber was armed with up to 13 machine guns and could carry a 9,500-pound bomb load. Grove and his fellow airmen were tasked with daylight bombing raids that were met by German fighters. This B-17 at Offutt Air Force Base near Omaha is one of nearly 13,000 B-17 bombers built during the war. Thousands of Flying Fortresses were damaged or destroyed. Grove would have looked out over the skies of Europe for enemy fighters from his position in the tail of his bomber. History teacher and author Rob Morris, whose many books include The Wild Blue Yonder and Beyond, which is a history of the 95th Bomb Group, tells us there were many dangers if you were part of a B-17 crew.
First of all, is you're at about 30,000 feet. It's around 60 degrees below zero, so it's extremely cold up there. And the plane is not pressurized, so there's no oxygen. You have to be constantly on oxygen at altitude, or you're going to die fairly quickly of hypoxia. Throw into that the fact that these guys are fighting off enemy fighters, especially in 1943 and early 1944, and also hoping that these big puffs of flak don't blow up right next to them and throw shrapnel all through their aircraft.
In April of 1944, while on a mission over Germany, Grove's B-17 had to make a crash landing after experiencing an overheated engine, bullets from an enemy fighter, and flak from German guns. The lead pilot of his B-17, Max Wilson, was able to limp the airplane across the Swiss border before making his crash landing. In 1990, Gerald Grove was able to find the video of that scene.
They were a little bit high, and Max pushes it down on the control stick, and as soon as they touch, the left main landing gear, which was probably damaged by the 20-millimeter cannon fire of that Focke-Wulf, that left main landing gear collapsed, and as soon as that happened, the left wing dipped, hit the ground quite hard, knocking number 1 and number 2 engines completely loose from the wing. That sent the airplane into a left-hand or a port turn. That skidded them over to their left toward a radio tower, which was not going to move, and it didn't, and their B-17 ultimately slammed into that radio tower and a radio shack that was next to it, a wooden structure, and that's how they stopped.
Even though Switzerland was a neutral country, any soldiers or airmen that ended up there were taken out of the war and put into internment camps. These camps were located high in the Swiss Alps in ski resort towns. The resorts were empty because of the war, but because of their location, escape was difficult. While being an internee at one of these camps was not the same as being a POW in Germany, boredom was plentiful and food was scarce.
Dad went from about 145 pounds, 150, to when he was returned to the States after his escape, he was down to about 105. So he lost some 40 pounds that he probably didn't have to lose, just based on lack of food. And again, it was the Swiss people weren't hoarding it. There just wasn't a lot of food to be had.
After 7 months, Grove, along with another internee, Joseph Pamonti, staged an escape. After 2 days on the run, they finally made it to France. Grove finally returned to his unit in England, but because he had escaped custody, he was no longer eligible to fly missions in the European theater of operations. He returned to the U.S. to train as a gunner on a B-29, but before he could be deployed to the Pacific theater, the war ended. While Grove's story is one of heroism, at the time, there were young men from all over this country that were doing similar things. According to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, 16.1 million Americans served in World War II. Today, there are only about 119,500 of them still alive. That is less than 1%. Only 2,415 World War II veterans are still living in Missouri. In a few short years, all of these World War II veterans will be gone. It was their heroism that allows us the freedoms that we have today, and their stories must be remembered. So what can you do? Find these veterans in your communities and learn their stories. And don't forget about our veterans from other wars. Submit their stories to projects like the Veteran Story Project, whose mission is to preserve the accounts and heroism of our veterans. You can also join one of the many veterans memorial groups out there. The 95th Bomb Group Memorials Foundation is one of many groups that work to educate the public and preserve the history of its air campaign over the skies of Europe. Eventually, all of these veterans will be gone, and as their voices go silent, it's up to us to pass their stories to the next generation. In Columbia, Tom Seagraves, ABC 17 News.
Thanks to Tom for that story tonight. Mid-Missouri, if you go to our website, abc17news.com, you can see the full interviews with Gerald Grove and Rob Morris. You can also learn more about the Veterans Story Project, the 95th Bomb Group Memorial Foundation, and a link to see books from Rob Morris.